Steppenwolf Theater presents Windfall. It's a world premiere from Academy Award-winning writer and ensemble member Terrell Alvin McCraney. Windfall is about a Chicago father who loses his child in a clash with police. He's then visited by three strangers who advise him, take the cash settlement and get out of town. It's a communal experience created for this moment. Windfall runs now through May 31st. Don't miss this world premiere production and get your tickets today at steppenwolf.org.
We're not saying a visit to Bloomington, Indiana will turn you into a forest-bathing, sandal-wearing, dissertation-defending, stray cat rescuing, nonprofit starting, Monroe Lake paddling, guitar strumming, march organizing, vinyl listening, leaf watching, zen finding, coffee roasting, yoga practicing, beer drinking, bread baking, co-op joining, pottery throwing, vintage thrifting, bike everywhereing, art appreciating, farmers market shopping, biz thinking, football fan. But we're not saying it won't. Visit Bloomington. See how it inspires you.
Today on CityCast Chicago, did you know Illinois has received more severe weather warnings than any other state so far this year? Plus, Ford City Mall's future is stuck in limbo, and we want to know what Chicago spots transport you back in time. It's Monday, April 27th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. I want to thank my guests for being in the building with us today. Of course, we've got executive producer Simone Alisea. Good to see you, Simone.
Hey, Jacoby. Good to see you.
And then we've got CityCast Chicago contributor Lee John Greco in the building. Lee, welcome back.
Hey, Jacoby. Thanks so much for having me.
Before we jump into the stories, I got some more thank yous I need to pass out, and that is for every single person who signed up to become a CityCast Chicago neighbor over the last week and a half. Our spring membership campaign, I know for many of you, it's probably something by the end of the week you just got wore down on. You said, forget it, I'm going to give you $10. But I know it's a lot more y'all who still haven't put in to get your official CityCast Chicago felt Oxford pennant. I'm going to let you know, we was going to close the club down today. We was going to close the doors, start the show, but we got a couple of them left over. And so we want to make sure that everybody who wants one gets one. Simone, honestly, every time we do one of these campaigns, it's a great opportunity to kind of slow down. We're doing this every single day. And even I start to think about like how much goes into making this, how many people from contributors to our daily team go into building this podcast and newsletter. And it's, you know, we just do it every day, but it is a lot of work, but a lot of people do it with love.
Absolutely. I think this is something that we take very seriously. We're very passionate about it, and we work really hard to kind of make something that is useful to you. And, you know, I know you find it valuable because you're still listening right now. If you're hearing me say these words, you have stuck around long enough because the thing we're going to get to today is valuable to you. And what we're asking basically is that you put $10 a month toward it. You do it at membership.citycast.fm/Chicago, and it helps ensure that we can keep doing this day in, day out, week in, week out, you know, for many, many.
Because it ain't guaranteed.
You know, for many, many episodes to come. You know, we've heard from neighbors who have joined during our campaign. Laura Kay, who said, I discovered the podcast about a year ago and have become a daily listener. I always learn something new about the city I've called home for over 30 years, whether it's smart political discussions, cool events, or a new restaurant or cuisine to check out. Thank you for informing and entertaining us with intelligence and good humor. That's it. That's all we're trying to do, Laura. You summarized it. That's exactly what we're trying to do here.
Even though we are wrapping up our membership campaign at the top of this week, we haven't quite yet hit our goals. If about 60 of y'all, right? Which enough people to make an improv show feel like absolute superstars on any given night in Chicago. Just 60 of y'all sign up, $10 a month or $100 a year at membership.citycast.fm. Not only do we hit our goals, but you're going to get ad-free listening, access to our next Neighbors Only event. We're going to be taking a tour around the city of Chicago, but I can't tell you where exactly we're going to be and where to pull up unless you become a neighbor. So get that out the way. Take a pause of the episode. Did you do it? You didn't. You didn't. You still here right now at this exact moment. Well, when you get some time, membership.citycast.fm, get them perks up. But let's jump into the stories that y'all came here to listen to today. As I said up top, honestly, this news was a bit of a shock to me. The fact that our state has more severe weather warnings. I mean, I look outside, I see the thunderstorms. I've heard the tornado warning sirens and seen the reporting from across the state. But Lee, the people we're supposed to call if one of these natural disasters impacts our home or our community is FEMA. But from what I'm hearing, they not always picking up.
Yeah, so this is really interesting, Jacoby. And before we get into the politics of it, you mentioned that Illinois has had more severe weather warnings than any other state. Just to give further context to that, since the beginning of this year, Illinois has clocked 80 tornado reports through April 19th. So that's twice as many as Mississippi, the state with the second most reports. So, obviously, like you said, just anecdotally, you look outside, you see how the wind has been crazy. Of course, we've had flooding over the last couple weeks, which if you're here in Chicago on the south and west sides, those have been hit more. Illinois has been hit really hard. And of course, Illinois is a blue state. It's run by Governor J.B. Pritzker, who has been at odds with Donald Trump. And apparently that does not bode well for Illinois getting any kind of federal assistance. Politico actually reported that it's 3 times harder for blue states to get disaster funding under Trump. He has rejected disaster aid for Democratic-run states at the highest rate in the 47-year history of FEMA. So it does look like Illinois is really going to struggle to get the help that they need to recover from these tornadoes and floods and, whatever else this crazy weather and climate change is going to hit us with.
Mm-hmm. I mean, looking through some of the reporting, the Trump administration continues to reject funds from last summer's storms. We know people who experienced storms in July a few years ago are still feeling the impacts to this day. So the fact that we look out our windows, we see the reporting across the state, which I gotta be clear, still blows my mind. Before doing this podcast, I did not know Illinois was this super site for tornadoes. And I went to school in central Illinois. And so the idea that the weather that's impacting people today, like tearing down homes and businesses today, isn't going to get any type of relief for these families moving forward that's a really dangerous picture, given this is only getting worse. These numbers we're seeing are building on top of each other.
Right, of course. And like I mentioned, with climate change, you're going to see every type of natural disaster get worse, get more frequent, whether that's a tornado or something like even a snowstorm. Like where I'm from in Buffalo, growing up, we used to have kind of consistent snowstorms that were normal. You would get 4 feet of snow and it was cool, which for us is like manageable. But now you're seeing these super severe blizzards that we're getting that take, days and sometimes weeks to recover from. I guess I would say if there's any kind of silver lining here, or maybe just like a little bit of hope, Axios reported that there has been some improvement in communication since the Department of Homeland Security, which runs FEMA, fired Director Kristi Noem. So, maybe we will see things get a little bit better in the next couple of months or, throughout the rest of this administration.
Mm-hmm. Simone, I know we are talking about seeing more frequent storms. When we look at the numbers from the Chicago Office of Emergency Management, how much more frequent have these gotten over the last few decades?
According to that office, we're seeing 13 of these disasters annually, up from just 3 in the 1980s, right? So there is some data here to back this up. And I think, also that office, there was some great reporting, as you mentioned, from Axios, Lee, where they talked to folks from the Office of Emergency Management and Communications, and they're sort of straight up saying hey, these reports that we put out about how disastrous, about how treacherous this weather pattern is, or some particular storm or whatever, in the past would have gotten us a disaster declaration, and now it's not. Like the stuff that we're reporting is very similar to stuff where we got disaster declarations in the past. And I think the other thing that you've kind of alluded to is, right, we are still talking about damage from storms in 2023, right? We are nearly 3 years out from those storms, and folks on the West Side in particular are still fighting to get help clearing mold out of their basements, making repairs, and that mold has a real impact on folks. That has a real health impact on your ability to breathe, whether or even if, especially if you have any kind of underlying condition like asthma, right? And some of that money, that was a situation where, right, that was during the Biden administration. We got 2 disaster declarations, right, in 2023. Money was beginning to be dispersed, and it still isn't helping everybody who needs the help, right? It still takes a lot of time and effort to apply to get the money through the various sort of, as that money kind of funnels in to the local agencies that need to help, right? And there are still people sort of like having to raise money separately from the help we were able to get from the federal government during that time. And so it's interesting because, like, it's not like the system for getting that federal aid was perfect or even that efficient or effective to begin with. So the idea that we're not even getting that is just that much more worrisome, I think.
Yeah, Simona, I was looking back at some of the reporting that I did several months ago, actually. The story that I wrote for Inside Climate News came out in December of last year, and it was touching on that exactly. I spoke with residents on the South and West sides who are still dealing with financial pain 2.5 years later from that flooding. So one of the residents on the West Side that I spoke with, Dorothy Rosenthal, she received $8,000 from FEMA, but the repairs for the flooding and the dry mold in her basement have cost her $10,000. So, even the money that people are getting from the federal government is not enough. And I think one of the other issues that some of the residents talk to me about is that, they're getting some of this help from the federal government. They are getting some funding from the city as well, which is kind of like funneled from the federal government. But I think the frustration that they have is they have these immediate problems, right, with like mold and just their houses being totally destroyed. But the city is working on these kind of longer term infrastructure projects, which of course are important because they help prevent that flooding in the future. But I think a lot of these people are saying like, hey, we need this help right now. And so there's also on the local level, with the Johnson administration, I think a little bit of this like conflict between residents and like what you use the funding for. Brett Chase over at the Sun-Times has also done excellent reporting on this week, all about the flooding and the deep tunnel project and why that is important because
and
basically
hundreds of millions of dollars from within Chicago and Cook County haven't been used yet, and people are starting to ask more and more questions.
Right. Yeah. It's like, why hasn't this funding been used? Because there's also deadlines for this, too. You have to like spend it by.
Well, it's like the COVID funding,
point.
right? Where it was like very use it or lose it kind of concept.
Yeah. And then that's where you get into problems like, with the ARPA COVID funding where, city council is like, we'll just use it for,
we'll pay down some pensions or whatever.
Crisis or something. Yeah. The COVID funding, though, to be fair, was like, if you actually dig into that, like super broad, like you could use that for almost anything. This funding is like, obviously much more strict in terms of its definition. So yeah, I think that kind of begs the question of like, why has it not been allocated sooner?
And the deep tunnel project you're referring to there, Lee, that has to do with essentially our sewer system. It's a part of like the way water, when it falls, right, how it moves through our water system and like making sure that, our drains don't get flooded, or that the river doesn't get flooded, or it gets reversed or something like that. So that deep tunnel system is part of that, and it's part of some of the infrastructure changes that are when we talk about flooding. I mean, it's so interesting. We mentioned this when we talked about the floods last week, of like, it touches on all these things. It's a public health issue. It's an infrastructure issue, right? It's a political issue, apparently, right? In terms of how funding gets doled out. It's obviously like an ecological, environmental issue as well. And so it kind of like touches every part of our lives here.
Yeah, not to get super nerdy, but this is why I always point out to people, one of my favorite folks from Roman history is Marcus Agrippa, who overhauled the Roman sewer system and apparently like sailed through the Roman sewers. And that's because, like, you think about how incredible Rome was. That is what they took pride in, because you cannot have a powerful empire without these like
there's no cities without sewers. Like it's pretty much the management of water in and out of a location is kind of key to that city's success.
Yeah. And they still use those systems today in Rome. Like, it's crazy. You look at the aqueducts and you're like, wow, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I know a lot of people might think like, ugh, why is CityCast talking about like sewer systems? This is boring, but it affects your everyday life. And like you said, public health.
We reversed an entire river for this, right?
Bananas.
And an engineering feat in the late 19th century, right? To complete a Supreme Court case fought with St. Louis over right. Like this is huge stuff. It's very important.
Now, if you are like me and you love theater that sparks conversation long after the curtain call, then listen up. Timeline Theater is bringing An Enemy of the People to the stage this spring, and it's the Chicago premiere at Timeline's new home at 5035 North Broadway in Uptown. This gripping play tackles big questions about truth, integrity, and what it costs to stand your ground when the entire crowd turns against you. Even though it's a classic story, the issues feel urgent, modern, and let's just say very Chicago. An Enemy of the People runs May 6th through June 7th, and it's the perfect choice for anybody who wants theater that challenges, provokes, and entertains all at once. Get your tickets and details at timelinetheater.com. The Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award-winning musical South Pacific is coming to the Paramount Theater in downtown Aurora, and it's got everything folks have come to love about the World War II drama. Spy missions, captivating love stories, and of course, all the classic songs like Some Enchanted Evening, Bolly Hey, I'm Gonna Wash That Man Right Out of My Hair. South Pacific is running from April 29th to June 14th at Paramount Theater, and tickets start at $31 when purchased in person. There are additional fees when you buy it on your phone or online. You can get your tickets today at ParamountAurora.com. The city filed an emergency motion to vacate Ford City Mall last week, but now a judge is giving them a bit of a lifeline to get things together. Simone, what's going on here? It feels a little bit like a back and forth.
Yeah, I would say Ford City Mall is a bit in limbo right now. I mean, it was always, and we talked about this, in the fall of last year, it had kind of been on the way out. A lot of vendors had picked, shops had kind of picked up and left. The mall is certainly a shell of its former self, but it was still technically open. The city had filed a complaint back as far as 2024, I think, involving safety issues. There were essentially, there was issues around just the infrastructure of the building, things kind of crumbling. And I think the most pressing one was this fire suppression system that hadn't been working. And so the city filed an emergency motion being like, we got to shut this thing down now. Like, this is a fire trap. Like,
everybody's
got to get out.
Shoppers, retailers, management.
And the owners of the building kind of they say they had been working on the fire suppression system for a while, and after having done so, say, actually, we got it, it's fixed, it'll work. Like,
No, come back.
It's going to be
test
fine.
it one more time. Test it one more time.
And the judge found that, the judge said, okay, you've got that done. We'll give you 3 more weeks and then we'll reassess in May. So there's going to be another hearing on this. And because, again, there are other issues besides that fire suppression system. And so
leaking potholes outside.
Yeah, I don't think by any stretch of the imagination this means Ford City Mall is saved. I think it's sort of just prolonging what is maybe a long and painful death. But it'll certainly be interesting to watch, because I know, I think we've talked about this a couple times on the show and sort of the decline of malls. And it's been an interesting thing to watch, because, it's one thing if a mall is then turned into something else, another place to be, or another, if someone buys the mall, or, whatever. But like in so many cases, like you just have these like kind of massive properties that aren't really becoming anything yet. Like, we don't really know what the future holds. And, you have these, especially when you have big tenants like JCPenney at Ford City, who, JCPenney initially, when the kind of motion to vacate came down, they were like, oh, we're going to be leaving the space altogether in a month or two. But then they're kind of, now they're like, we're closely monitoring the situation, but like, they're still telling people to go to Chicago Ridge. Like, they have other locations. Like JCPenney, has bigger concerns than this one location at Ford City Mall. And,
they've been telling people just go over to the Chicago Ridge Mall, to their other location. The idea that they are already looking for a place in what they call the surrounding Chicago area, so no guarantees they will even stay in the city proper, leads me to believe that they've been riding this out as long as they can. All of their statements have some sense of kind of frustration just baked into them. And given the fact that Namdar Realty, that owns it, has this reputation across the country of buying these types of property and sort of going the private equity way of just sort of slowly stripping them, watching them decay, not really investing in any type of renewal, while also sitting on a potential $150 million bid from a major manufacturing group to come in and put warehouses up on the site that is still sitting in zoning committee hell, I suppose, and has the full support of Derek Curtis, the alder, who wants to see the property sort of torn down and remade into a manufacturing hub. So it's been a slow death. I imagine JCPenney leaving, and then, if AMC starts floating the idea of getting out of there, it's the writing's literally on the decaying walls.
Yeah. I know Ford City was your main mall growing up, right, Jacoby, where you spent a lot of time as a kid.
It was everything. It was the first place we could go by ourselves, the first place where our people were comfortable letting us get on the bus by ourselves. It was that third space that we were talking about all the time that is missing for young people. It was a place that held concerts. It was a place that we could go, and honestly, none of us were in there shopping, but it was an easy place for us to meet up, easy place to practice social skills outside the confines of our teachers. Like everything was built inside it, obviously, in the way the mall was supposed to be. But I mean, for like us in particular, who there weren't tons of places you can go in my neighborhood. Basically, where my grandparents lived in like Chatham and Calumet Heights, that's mostly residential areas. There are a couple corridors and a couple strips every day, but you either going to Evergreen Plaza, Forest City, or had to go out to the burbs. And so, like, I can't, like, as a kid now, I would really struggle to know like what my options were to get a bunch of us together in a place that we don't immediately cause panic for everybody else that's there.
It's interesting because malls often have a mix of vendors who are local, sort of small vendors, but, a lot of it is dominated by these big chains that I don't really have, a ton of, love lost for. But I think that
Forest
loss
City
of it
has so much local flair.
Yeah.
So much.
I think that loss of a third space, particularly for young people, I do think is really key. Especially as we think about the trend of teen trends, right? And sort of how adults are trying to figure out like, well, where where do kids go and how
Mm-hmm.
can we keep them safe wherever they go, right? Creative producer Emmy Mack just wrote a story also about Lincolnwood Mall, which also is on the verge of closure, or at least there are lots of reports and lots of Reddit speculation that it's set to close April 30. She actually went to the mall and just like asked every single vendor who's still there. That's another one where a lot of vendors have already left, but she went and asked every single one. It's like, hey, are you going to be in business? And there were a lot who said like, yeah, we're planning to leave at the end of the month. There were a few who were like, oh, we don't know. We're just going to stick around as much as possible, but we're kind of nervous about it. They were like, I don't know what that means. And, you know, so far the city of Lincolnwood is like, oh, we don't have any news about a closing date. Although they put closing date in quotation marks, which I find really funny. I don't know what that means. And
So what are y'all talking about?
yeah,
This?
yeah. I think, I don't know. The death of the mall is just very much in the zeitgeist right now, and I think it's
And like I don't give a damn about J.C. Penney.
Sure, yeah,
or what,
or
you know,
Old
whatever the
Navy
hell
or whatever,
happened. Whatever the hell happens to AMC, or you know, I wasn't hurt when Forever 21 was gone, but
for millennial girls that was big.
I know, Emmy talked about it earlier, right? And so yeah, for a lot of these chains, I could give a damn, but yeah, it's, you know, how reliant so many of us were on that just being a default place, whether it was for holidays, just time to spend with your family. Like it was, it was an easy go-to, like takeout at night from the same place.
Because it was like you talk about like the death of the mall, and it's like the reasons that malls came about is because we killed or allowed downtown corridors to die. You know, so then like the mall became this kind of like new forum. It just became like an enclosed downtown, essentially. So yeah, I mean, if we don't have like State Street now is basically dead. And so if we don't have that and we don't have malls, like where are people supposed to go?
Staying on this theme a little bit, like these places that in many ways transport us. Like for me, Forest City was one of those places that reminded me of my childhood. But I wonder, are there places in the city for y'all that feel like they transport you to a particular place in time? Leah, I'm gonna start with you.
Yeah, I just did a story, hopefully it'll be out soon on Block Club, about a place in Bridgeport called Let's Boogie Records. They are celebrating their 50th anniversary this year, so they've been around since 1976, and you walk in the door of this place, and it is 1976 in there. I mean, the walls are painted tangerine orange with the same posters that have been up since 1977. They even still have the same receipts for the posters. So, you know, it's like Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and Elton John, and they've faded to like blue and black at this point. The place is stocked full of vinyls and 8-tracks and CDs. Everything is just totally analog. And I think it's such a breath of fresh air in this age where everything is on your phone. You know, I know that like Chicago Reader and other local musicians have talked about boycotting Spotify because of the problems that they have with the streaming app. So it's nice to go to a place and, you know, look for a physical record and talk to people who actually have knowledge of not only music and bands, but also of like the specific recording studios as well. I talked with some of the owners and workers there, which, by the way, Let's Boogie is only open on Saturdays now. The owners took it over from the original owner, who passed away in 2024. So they're just doing it on Saturdays to kind of keep the place going. But I was talking with the workers there, and they were telling me about how like specific production studios are known for better sound quality. So like real music nerds will come in and they'll look for, you know, I think one of the jazz production studios is called like Blue Note or something. So if they find that, they will like freak out over that. There was another customer that I ran into, and he was so excited because he found this record from the 70s. I think it was called like Songs of the Humpback Whale, which, was like, you wouldn't think like A, somebody is looking for that, or B, that this place would have it. But they do. They have, stage musical recordings, which I love. And I feel like if you are a big, golden age musical nerd like I am, nothing sounds better than listening to like My Fair Lady on a vinyl record. It just sounds so good. I can't describe why. So, it was really cool. I loved it in there. I just felt like I was in, I don't know, like High Fidelity or, Almost Famous or something.
I literally just walked past them the other day because I went to the Currency concert at Ramova. And so I've passed them a bunch of times, but I don't actually think I've ever stopped in. Maybe they've been closed on the days I've been by recently, but I'm going to have to make some time on a Saturday.
Well, because you're a record guy, right, Jacoby? You like a vinyl.
I am.
Yeah.
I've been trying to
get for that.
Yeah, I live down the street from Hyde Park Records, so it was easy to like keep buying. But right now, I don't know. I'm not sure what the closest thing to me right now is, but this isn't out the way, and so I got to make my way over there.
And it's kind of just a cool place to like hang out too. Like they're open, into the evening. And when I was there, I was talking to them for like a couple of hours, and there were customers that were just like hanging there. There was like a couple with a baby, and they were just like chilling with the baby and looking for stuff. Like you can really just kill a whole day in there and, look for records. And they had a couple of books too and everything on music too, I think. But yeah, and it's kind of interesting too, talking to like some of the younger people who work there now, like people who are like 19 or in their 20s, and they're discovering how these records have been produced. Like one of the workers was telling me that back in, the disco era, when there were hand claps on a record, they would actually credit the person who did the hand claps. Yes, exactly. And she was like, this is the kind of stuff that you will find, like in the liner notes and everything. And they'll credit like whoever the bassist is or whatever. But yeah, it's crazy to think about that. Also, one of the interesting things that you will not be able to find on Spotify is what's inside of these vinyls. People will have like personal photos in there that they accidentally left in, or, magazine clippings. I asked one of the girls working there what the weirdest thing was that they found. And I thought she was going to say something like, I'm picturing this place as like from the 70s. Like somebody has got to have like weed in there, right? Or like some sort of,
a really stash. Crusty joint. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And she said that she opened a record. She was working with her sister one day, and like graphic pornography.
That actually, that's where my brain would have gone first. Actually,
that's where mine it also feels like a thing like from the 70s. So I guess also like buyer beware. If you go, like you might be surprised what you find or what you take home. But that's part of the tactile experience, I guess, of looking through used and previously loved stuff.
If you want to stop by, it's right off of 33rd and Halsted, down the street from the Richard J. Daley branch of the Chicago Public Library and the aforementioned Ramova Theater. Simone, you got any spots like that for you around the city?
I think the obvious one, and because I live so close to it, that I feel like it would make any list with this title, is the Green Mill, right? Jazz bar that, supposedly Capone associated, although our creative producer, Emmy Mack, has written about that as well. Is that not true? It's maybe a bit exaggerated.
I thought there was a tunnel in everything.
The tunnel, don't talk about you got to be careful with the tunnel stuff, because the tunnel stuff is like almost assuredly not real. It's like a kind of an urban legend.
What?
Yeah. It's the people who know will tell you. They will be in our comments and they will tell you what is. There's a lot of myth making around the Green Mill, but it leans into that myth making very, very well. That does make you feel like you are transported to that era. So, six of one. At what point is the myth more important than the truth? I don't know.
I also do feel like Al Capone is to Chicago as George Washington is to like most cities on the East Coast. Like
everyone has a story about how he was there.
Yeah, like he was there.
But Jacoby, do you have a spot that makes you transports you in time just to round it out?
Mm-hmm. One obvious one is the rink. Anytime I go there, they have all of these pictures of skaters from over the years, and my mom's picture is up there from when she was like 22, maybe like 23, 24, maybe it was a little older. Somewhere in her mid-20s. And every time I see it, the biggest smile comes across my face. And then Golden's Tropical World. It is a fish pet store off 86th and Ashland. It was around the corner from my elementary school. And I didn't learn until later in life that is where my mom got all of our fish from as a kid. And then when I finally went there, I found out that a friend I met in college, his grandfather owned that store, and he had been working there his entire life. And so I had this unknown connection to this store. And now every time I go in there, I just get this vague sense that like I've been here as a kid. Like I remember this place. And now it has takes on a whole new meaning. And they usually have a bird in there, Polly, this parrot who talks to you. But yeah, shout out to Golden's, shout out to Mr. Golden, shout out to Polly. If you're not there, Polly, you rip. But I think they probably have a bird nurse. Anyway, we want to hear from y'all. 773-780-0246. What are those places in Chicago that either take you back to your childhood or feel like you're going in a bit of a time machine? I want to give a huge thank you to our guest today, executive producer Simone Alicea.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
And CityCast Chicago contributor Lee John Greco.
Thanks, Jacoby.
And again, I want to give a huge thank you to all of our new neighbors. We got a bunch of y'all to say thank you to. Clearly, y'all heard our pleas and you're stepping up. You were interested in that pennant, or you just want to show some extra love to the homies over here. Let me get through these names. Shout out to Aubrey M., Gabriel T., Megan H., Marvin H., Jennifer P., Abigail L., Nicole B., Rodney L., Natalie B., Morgan D., Anna B., Bradley W., Victoria B., Michael C., Bethel K., Amelia H., Emily C., Patrick S., Theo A., Morgan K., and get this, Lynn P. ×2, because there's another Lynn P., one with one N, the other with two N's, and they joined right after one another. And I hope y'all get to meet in person, unless y'all have already met in person and y'all part of the Lincoln Park Lynn P's. Maybe there's something there. Maybe. If you also want a shout out, in addition to ad-free listening, access to a special neighbors only events email every single week. We tell you some of our favorite things happening in and around the city, and that invite to our event coming up in May with the Chicago Architecture Center, then you should probably head over to membership.citycast.fm/Chicago. And I know for some of y'all thinking, I held out. I went through a week and a half and they didn't get me with these amazing, well-constructed, full of love pitches. If that makes you feel good about yourself, then, to each their own, But the rest of y'all, go and find $10 for your boy. Go ahead. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow, but I can't let you go without some good news. International Jazz Day is tomorrow, and we got plenty of events in our calendar at chicago.citycast.fm, but I want to put you on Just for a Thrill, which is going down tomorrow at the Epiphany Center for the Arts. This packed lineup, all for the free. I'm going to drop a link for you in the show notes. As always, I appreciate you for being here. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. I'll talk to you then. Peace.